Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to tell you all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Don't miss out on our comic book creator interviews, including our monthly Chichester chats with comic book legend DG Chichester, superhero movie brackets in our search for the worst comic book movie of all time, and many, many more specials, all completely uncensored. Access starts for $3 a month, full video when you pledge $5 a month. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/CapesandLunatics. Hope to see you there.
Avast me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. Arrgh. I am your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Thank you for being here, Mozz. In a world of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters, there is one, or two, or maybe three, or one in the mind. Led by Khonshu to battle evil. They are, the Moon Knight. Season 1, Episode 3, The Friendly Type. With Mark in the forefront and Harrow ahead, Mark and Layla navigate Cairo for intel. Mohammed Daeb is our director this week. Our writers this week are also Beo DeMail, Peter Cameron, Sabir Pizzada. Let's see if we got any special titles for any of these guys. And yes, they all got that written by credit Bio, Peter, and Sabir. Jeremy Slater gets our credit for television by, along with Alex Minahan, who is our executive story editor, not just any old story editor. Doug Monach and Don Perlin created Moon Knight, and of course, hardest working person in show business this week is Danielle Iman, our staff writer. Alrighty now, getting back to the story at hand. Where did I put that story? This is actually interesting. I like how it opens. We open with Mark chasing some guys across the rooftop, and when we catch them, they are killing a guy.
Yeah.
Who we never find out who they're killing or why they're killing him. Which is, interesting, I suppose. I guess. I guess we can assume that in the blackout spots, lots of people are dying.
That, and it just seems like random thuggery, It's just, that's how these gangs operate. You got to do a bit of that to get the income flowing.
I mean, I can see that, but on a rooftop?
Most movies, it seems like maybe that's just a thing in the Middle East or in Cairo, but whenever you're in Cairo, you got to run away from people on rooftops.
Yeah, well, I guess there you go. Yeah, and that is, well, he's running towards them, so that's also interesting. So, because they're not chasing him, he's after them,
right?
And when he gets there, it looks like he is surprising them, murdering this guy, and then they get to the big fancy knife fight. I will be honest with you, when I saw this guy, because he's got a very fancy mustache, I thought for a minute he might be Frenchy, and that it was going to be like, Mark, that's his pilot, that he was chasing them to catch up with them, but that, it's just another one of his merc friends. But no, it was not. This got very dark very fast.
Yeah.
And we see an interesting dynamic developing between Steven and Mark here, which is that Mark is taking the actions, but Steven, he pulls Mark back when he starts to go too far. And I find that an interesting aspect of this.
Now, do you think it's simply that he's suggesting stuff, he's just really naggy, or does he have partial control over the body itself as well?
Well, and I think it is somewhat of partial control, but I also think it's the idea that in his dissociative identity disorder, it is just this reality that, when he gets certain stimulations, certain traumas, he that's what brings out the other personalities. So, like, when he sees himself going too far, that is the trigger to bring Steven out. So even though they have this antagonistic relationship, really, that Steven part is meant there so that Mark doesn't go too far, doesn't go into that.
Yeah, up until
persona.
now, most times Mark reappears after. I mean, most times Steven reappears after Mark has been in control for a moment. Is right at the end of like a lot of violence. He often finds himself surrounded by dead bodies and covered in other people's blood.
Yeah, and this, I think, is the thing, is that the identities are becoming more comfortable with each other. And whereas before, in fact, we do see that a bit in this with the not sure who was doing the murdering. Where they were both like, I didn't do that, you did that. It's like, what would make you think I would have done that, And that's when we do start to get the idea that there is that third alter in there. That's really the most evidence they've put forth for the existence of that third alter, that there is this person who does go too far, that is the person that is just beyond Mark, that, when that needs to happen, it needs to happen. And Mark could do it for a while, but also sometimes maybe there were things that even Mark had difficulty with. And that is, and of course, as Steven becomes more apparent, Mark is being reminded of who he really wants to be. And if we imagine Mark is the base personality, that Mark was the first, like the original birth certificate does say Mark Spector, then that gives him some pull on these relationships where, he wants to be the dominant force. He wants to be the one moving everyone forward. But at the same time, there's only so much he can do. And at the same time, he has to still accomplish what needs to be done.
I was thinking, what if, like, there's one main personality that we haven't seen, and these two are alter personalities of that one person, and this battle between Mark and Steven is more like the devil and the angel on your shoulder, right? And this person, his personality, whatever, has been away in some other realm or dimension doing whatever, and left the body to his two alter personalities, and they switch back and forth. And now he's done with whatever, and now he's back, and he catches himself in moments. He's like, wait a second, what's happening here? Oh, where I found myself. And then he exerts himself when he gets back from his adventures or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a possibility. Here's the thing to always remember is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe does not have to follow the Marvel comic book universe rules. In fact, it is often better when they do make the choice to change things. And they alter things so that things do grow and change and be different than what was exactly in the comics, expressly because if they just did what happened in the comics, you would know what was going to happen.
Right.
And as much as you might want to see the tableau, see the painted image with actors, it would be a boring story because, you knew what was going to happen.
Right.
You knew exactly how this thing's going to play out. And you don't really want that. You want to be surprised and be unsure of where it goes next.
How did it play out in the comics?
Well, there's a lot of different ways it's played out in the comics. That's always the interesting thing about these stories is, what starts as one thing, another writer takes another direction, and then pretty soon they start retelling the old stories. But when they retell the old stories, they're also completely reimagining them in the context of stuff that was established later. So it's interesting how it plays out and weaves through itself and, takes itself to another level and another length because it's trying to make everything make sense retroactively, but how it originally played out might have been very differently, but that's the thing. So, and in this case, I mean, like I say, in the original books, Mark is the base. Steven is was actually his millionaire persona. So Stephen Grant was the millionaire playboy persona. Jake Lockley, Lockley, who we haven't seen yet. Jake Lockley was the cabbie persona, but the cabbie persona also then became the much darker version. Because originally he was just, the guy on the street getting the intel. Then he became the guy on the street who wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. So
he was like a CI at first, or
what?
He was a CI at first.
A CI?
Yeah, so he was on the street getting information. I'm not sure what you meant by that.
Well, he was a cabbie was his job, but he was like undercover, and he'd talk to people and get the information. That's how Mark would get the information, because Jake Lockley, as this cabbie, would go undercover and would talk to people in the little rut, because obviously Stephen Grant can't and Mark Spector can't. But this cabbie, he can go into the underworld. He can go into the drug den, and he doesn't look out of place. Is the idea? They say it's the Matches Malone character from Batman. It's like how do Bruce Wayne can't go in there, but Matches Malone can. So that's the idea. That's the theory. But we haven't seen Jake yet, and we may never see Jake. They may be saving Jake for season 2. We have to see. But in this moment, it has been very nicely put together, what they're doing. But it's interesting when, and of course you have to give the shout out of the little meme of the cabbie asking, Stephen for says, "Where's my money? Where's my money?" Reference to the, "Hey Dracula, you big nerd, where's my money?" So,
what is that? That was like a famous meme a while back or something?
It was, someone started adding, I don't know who it was, but they started just putting in fake word bubbles in scenes. Random BS, go. And, this is all stuff that comes back. And, obviously the people who were writing it seen it. So they do want to give you little, that's a little Easter egg, I think, but they're small. And then what's interesting is the next time they come to, and all of a sudden they're at some completely different place, up above a cliff, and the other 2 guys were dead. There's just the youngest one, and Khonshu, the voice of Khonshu, is there and says, "Hang him over the cliff, he'll talk." And he's like, "He's just a kid." It's like, do it. And, of course, what's funny in that is, what I find 2 things funny in that. One is how deep the kid's voice was. He goes, "I love it," and just cuts his own scarf. Just a little Hail Hydra kind of thing. Right. Which I thought was cool, but also just that idea that he's like, he's just a kid. But he's committed. He is not going gently into that good night. Yeah.
But that's the interesting thing, because if you had a Hydra agent, you wouldn't make it easier for them to kill themselves, right? Because that's what they're gonna do. So you take cares to make sure they can't, right? Yeah. And here, and for centuries, he's been dealing with the cult of Vomit. So he would know that they're prone to just committing suicide rather than giving any information. Why would he say dangle him over the cliff?
Well, to be fair, when Zemo was interrogating the Hydra agent for the Red Book, he did the exact same thing. He tortured him and he strung him up, and then the guy talked,
Right, no, but he tortured him. He didn't threaten to kill him. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the wrong threat.
That more direct thing is, Well, I mean, he was technically threatening to kill him because he had his head in the sink and the water was rising. Yeah, but also that it's the slowness, and then of course he does actually kill them anyway. So waka waka. But it was, and also F. Murray Abraham really killing his Khonshu. I really thought he would talk.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't think very far ahead. Clearly.
Well, this is we get this, which is the other gods are not fans of Khonshu. And apparently he has been imprisoned before. They've let him out on good behavior, but as they say, he is garish. He is problematic, and it is interesting how it plays out with the gods, because of course when they don't have any other leads, Khonshu says, I have an idea. It's a bad idea, but I have one. And he just, because even asks, well, what about the other gods? Can't the other gods help us? It's like, you don't know the other gods. Yeah. They are awful. Well, and for what it's worth, and people have pointed this out online, which is that it's interesting when you look at this and you look at how the gods are portrayed in this, and then you think about Thor: Love and Thunder, which we just got the trailer release for. And for those who don't know, at least according to the rumor, so nothing spoiler except that it's the rumor that the villain in it is going to be Gore the God Butcher, who is very mad about the fact that the gods don't interfere. Which I always found like one of these weird things, like you're mad that we don't interfere in your lives? It's like, would you rather that we just controlled every aspect of your life? Because we could, Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be one extreme or the other. There's a delicate touch to be had if you want to play the game, but you got to want to play the game. That's what he's saying. You guys aren't even trying to play the game. This is your game. Yeah, I mean, I'm not arguing per se, but I'm also going to say that this is the Ahmet issue. Ahmet wants to just look. We know the future. We know who's going to be a good person and who's going to be an evil person. Let's just kill all the bad people. And then we good, And it doesn't matter if you were just born yesterday. Nope, we know you're going to be a bad person. Sorry.
So that speaks to a deterministic view of life. To say that there is no chance for, commingling redemption. Forces that join or oppose each other to form, the possibility of unthought of consequences. Like things can spiral out of shape and new things can happen. So that's what Ahmet would believe.
Well, no, Ahmet says that never happens.
No.
Khonshu says, Ahmet says you have to kill these people because they're gonna kill. You have to.
That's assuming that the timeline cannot be affected, right?
Well, exactly, which Ahmet assumes, which is a silly assumption because as soon as And because as soon as they kill this person, lots of other people's lives are going to be changing. Tristan, you had a question.
Oh yeah, it's not related to this, but this talking because it's not like a full change.
Yes. Well, that is a fair question.
It's like does he use different vocal cords?
Well, no. What he does is he changes his voice, much in the way that and of course Two-Face also has a bit of dissociative identity disorder as well. So when they're doing the two different voices, it's the same. And if you look it up, you'll see it's always the same actor playing Two-Face, but he changes his voice in the way that you change your voice when you do a different character. Yeah.
So, I always thought it was because, half of his, maybe, some of the acid got into his throat, so half of his vocal may have gotten burned. Well,
yeah, but the fact of the matter is that neither way, he is going to be changing his voice because he also talks because he also can talk in his normal voice. So even if acid did burn part of his vocal cords, that may transfer over to his other voices, but his voices will still have clear, distinct differences. So, and this is what we see here with Stephen Grant has his accent, governor, and Mark Spector does not. So
I would love to hear the perspective of somebody from London, how accurate his accent is. Or if he's playing it up to be purposefully like an American's imaginary version of a British accent.
I have not heard a lot of complaints about his accent yet. It's not, and I here's the thing. I think when it comes to Cockney accents, a lot of them are really just that bad. It's like Australian accents,
But as an actor, I wonder if if he chose to play it a certain way, intending for it to be a true to form, a British accent, or if he's playing it as an American's version of because if he is doing that, that would be pretty cool.
Well, what it is, I mean, it's probably a little from column A and a little from column B, but it's like Paul Hogan or it's like Bob and Doug McKenzie. Bob and Doug McKenzie, Rick Moranis and, Jay Thomas. They were Canadians, but they were told we had to have more Canadian characters on TV. And so, well, we are Canadian characters. What do you mean? And so they just did the most stereotypical Canadians they could to be Bob and Doug McKenzie. Likewise with Paul Hogan, he's an Australian. He's on Australian television. He says, I should do a character that's just so over the top Australian, and just and that becomes his character. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't mean that he's not. It's not that it's a fake accent. It's that. Oh yeah, okay. It's just a very exaggerated accent, and it sounds fake. But a lot of people who have that accent probably sound fake. Is the idea,
Yeah.
They all kind of sound awful. So, yeah. So that's that. It's and for what it's worth, when you get into all kinds of accents, whether it's Midwestern or New York, New York accents, or Pakistani accents or Indian accents or Japanese accents, there is a point where you go like, we're kind of getting to this part where we're uncomfortable with it, but at the same time, it's like, no, this is actually how I talk. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can look at it, but in this moment, they decide they have to confront the gods, and Khonshu makes an eclipse, which shouldn't be able to happen, but it does. Which is why I think this is something of an optical illusion, because there's this.
Has to be.
Does he actually? Well, and for what it's worth, this is a real thing. That it's like you say, it's in the like in the Bible, they'll talk about how the sun stayed still, or it moved here, it did this, all these different things with the manipulation of celestial bodies that people witness. So, like they'll say that when that's often a common miracle that happens when you're going with saint stories. It's like, this is what they did to the sun and the moon to show how powerful they were. So I think it did happen, and people saw it. But the moon didn't actually move out of its orbit. It's just that within the region, this is what the people of Egypt saw.
Right.
And I do think it is literally just in that Cairo area that the eclipse occurred. It did not occur across the world. But everyone in Cairo saw it because he's just cool like that. And we get our little meeting of the gods and all the other avatars, and we see that even though it's called the Ennead and there's supposed to be 9 of them, there's only 5 people there. So a few of these folks, they are not available for this.
Or not part of the coalition.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. And they have their little thing, and at the end of the day, Khonshu is not a good lawyer for himself. And Harrow just comes in, and it's like, Khonshu, look, we all know Khonshu. I was his old avatar. I'm glad I got free of him. He's kind of exploiting this really mentally ill poor kid. And it's actually one of the parts that I thought was so powerful in this was, after Khonshu basically says, see what I tell you, and all this kind of stuff. And when they do talk to Mark and they say, is what he's saying about you too. And he says, I am not well, but you have to understand what he is planning is horrific. And it's the idea that both things can be true. But as people know, when you have a mentally ill witness on the stand, they're easy to make look crazy and thereby have people doubt them, which makes them, sadly, very easy targets for people who want to exploit them or abuse them or hurt them, because a lot of times they're making accusations regardless, which means that if you do it to them, people might think that it's just another mentally ill person making the accusation. And it's sad and it's horrible, but this is reality, and this is the dark flip side of this story. As it is, they kick him out. They tell Khonshu to quit being a jerk and leave poor Mr. Harrow alone. And that leads our heroes to now find another way to figure out how to get to Amit's burial place. And we have one of the Ennead basically give this secret, like, look, even the gods don't know where they buried Amit, because they just, but there were clues, and they have to find the sarcophagus of this one dude who put in clues as to how you could find him if you had to. And
so why does the scarab not work anymore?
No, the scarab works. They just don't have it.
So who has the scarab right now?
Harrow has the scarab, and Harrow.
That's what I'm saying. So, they need to. I was like, I thought Harrow had already found the spot.
No, he found the spot, but he also needs to make sure no one else finds it.
Gotcha.
So when he finds out they're going for this, he needs to stop them.
I see. That makes sense. I was wondering, like, why do you care? You found, your goal is let them do whatever. You'll be done in a second.
Yeah. As happens, because it's not like he's the one doing the digging. He's got people for that. And so he's got to sort of run interference on this, because first off, if the gods actually do get involved, he's toast. So if he goes there and he doesn't defend himself,
right? I guess once he sees the eclipse, he's like, "Oh, okay, fine."
Exactly, and like I said, quite frankly, without that, he is, if he doesn't stop Mark as well, at least if he doesn't stand up to Mark and thwart Mark, Mark may get the opportunity to come. It's like, just because you have a Death Star doesn't mean you actually don't want to find R2-D2 and get those Death Star plans back.
Right.
It's like you don't want to leave that thread hanging. So they do go and they find this gentleman. Of course, I've already closed out that window. The actor who sadly died making this.
Really?
Yeah, the guy who plays Mr. Midnight, he did die. He is the guy who. Yeah, I think it was a stunt accident.
Holy moly!
Yeah, it's very sad, and and actually, he actually is a villain of Moon Knight. So I think they had totally planned on bringing him back for more stuff, but obviously they can't now. It comes into its whole other bag of things on what they're going to do with him. But they do get to the sarcophagus, and they don't know what to look for. But of course, Mark does. That's where Mark, being a big nerd, suddenly comes in handy, and he's trying to tell him, okay, you need to move this here, move that there. And, this gets into a whole thing. We get Harrow showing up to tell this guy, look, don't deal with them, deal with me, because I actually have real power. And he gives him the sample of, how he's a magical being. And then Mark summons the suit. We get the big fight. Again, we have Steven pulling Mark back, and with bad results, because he just did the Mark saying, we can talk this through, and they just put all the spears to him. It's like, okay, this isn't working. This is working. Mark, come back.
I give in. Like, come on, guy.
Yeah,
their whole job. They get paid to stop conversations, to end conversations, right?
Exactly,
now this conversation's over. Kill them. Right? That's what these guys get paid to do. You're not going to talk them down.
But they do get away. They do get away. They get to the desert, and then they're like, they still don't know what to do. They need Mark, and so they need Steven. So Mark releases it back, and Khonshu even says, "Oh, I summon the gods, and you summon the worm."
Yeah. So here's something interesting. His knowledge of Egypt and all this stuff is real. Then it's not like delusion of knowledge of this. So where did he get this knowledge, right? Did he actually go to university while Mark was asleep, or did Mark always have these thoughts or this knowledge? And if he did, then why doesn't he have it now? Did that knowledge get compartmentalized as well, or like so?
I assume it did, and I mean, my real thought is that is what happened. Is that like at some point the real Mark Spector was a guy who understood this and was a guy who handled all these things.
What's the original identity?
So the idea,
Mark Spector, yeah.
So the idea is has closer access to his brain or his subconscious or his memories.
Exactly. So Mark Spector is no longer able to access this part of him the way that he once was, we assume. And also you have this reality that, in the Marvel Universe, somehow this person, he believes he has this knowledge, so he has this knowledge.
Right, that's the part.
It's
So I mean, like, because I think that needs to be two different things, believing you have the knowledge. And I think it's an interesting chance to play with stuff for us to see. It would be really interesting to see those cracks forming. Oh, yeah. Wait, what? I'm supposed to know this. Why don't I understand this? I know how to read hieroglyphics. Why can't I read this? I can't read. That'd be such a fun thing to play with.
Yeah, it would be, except that would also, obviously hurt the reality of the scene. And it makes the story harder, Mozz.
Right.
Harder. It's
Fair
better
enough.
that this guy can read 10 languages. And he's, sort of the, like, I remember when I think it's in, is it Last Crusade, where they send, Last Crusade, and they send the older professor, the one that runs the museum, to Cairo with the book, and he says, "Oh, you think you're going to find him? This man speaks like 18 different languages and all this kind of stuff." He knows every custom. He probably does, but at the same time, he also doesn't know how to apply that in this real world setting. So I think that there is that overlap that we get with that, which is that, that he has this knowledge, and probably Mark Spector had this knowledge at a point in whatever he was doing. He was just that knowledgeable. But then in this situation, he finds himself as being separated from that knowledge, because that knowledge, that nerd power, went to Steven. And I think maybe even as Steven is becoming more dominant, maybe Mark would have had that in the past when Mark would take over. And, Steven was just sort of more of a bestial part of him. But as Steven becomes more and more dominant in the relationship, then I think Steven gets his say, because this was the little kid reading the books on Egyptology since we were little, and that's where Stephen Grant comes from. Stephen Grant is the archaeologist and the scientist and the person fascinated with all of this stuff. And if you're going to make me be that person, then that all comes with me. You don't get to take that. And it's like how the many versions of the Incredible Hulk can't do nuclear physics, And they may know they're Bruce Banner, and they may know things about Bruce Banner, but they also know that part of their power is blocked away from them. That's something that only Banner gets to play with. Sometimes they do it where they do, but whenever they do that, it's always a Hulk with the mind of Banner. That's when they get that merging. But that, generally speaking, no matter how intelligent a Hulk gets, they usually have that little part of Banner turned off, and that's just what Banner gets to keep. So
interesting.
That's how that goes. They figure out where the temple is, based on this, because they realize that all of these pinpricks on this burial cloth are a star map. It's these constellations. And they say, okay, so all we have to do is figure out where those constellations are, and we can put them, we can triangulate to where we need to be. And he basically says, well, no, you can't, because if you don't know the date that this happened, stars move, not very much in star terms, But, when you're trying to figure out a terrestrial distance based on stars in the sky, that little bit of drift over 2,000 years could put you miles away from where you want to be. And then when Khonshu says, I remember that night, I remember every night. And now there is, and it's just a little quirk here. If Khonshu just said that was May 14th, 3000 BC, then they could have just typed in that number and they could have gotten that trajectory into the computer program. But he doesn't, and it's a much more dramatic thing to have him just move the sky back 5,000 years.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, and again, it's the same thing as when he moves the moon over the sun. It's effectively a miraculous optical illusion that when he does it, this is what the sky looked like on that date 5,000 years ago.
So we were just seeing a projection of his memories cycling back. That's all, right?
Effectively. Well, and again, it's the idea of what is reality, but, a shadow on a wall. I mean, basically, if you really...
Well, no, in this term, it would have consequences. If he actually moved the heavens, moving the heavens would mean, countless galaxies of civilizations affected by different radiomagnetic environments.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing, but that's why it's a miracle, because that didn't happen. And yet what we can observe is this. So you can say, is that an illusion, or is it him just and here's another interesting way to look at it. The stars themselves are an illusion because they are light that we see that, where we see a star is today, that's not where that star is. So arguably what he is doing is he is just moving the night sky, restructuring it so that it looks like it did at that point, because the light hitting it is not where the star is. It's just where the light is. And the same thing with the moon and the shadow and all that kind of stuff. He's not moving the parts. He's moving the light. He's moving this. What he's doing is he is moving the sky. Because you can see, and it is literally just that he is moving the sky, because you see the movements he does with his hands. It's him moving the sky like he was swiping right or swiping left on one of the big holographic interfaces that we are so popular in the Marvel Universe. So it's really just he is swiping it till he gets back to the right date. And that is the thing, because, of course, the universe is a hologram. Mozz.
We're all on the Truman Show.
Exactly. All right. And then when he's doing this, of course, the gods are not happy because they do not want,
And they told him.
Bad enough he's got his avatar running around in a big white cape, throwing moon blades at everybody. Here he is changing the sky, causing miracles, making everyone in Cairo go, what the heck? Now, to be fair, at this point in history, a big purple guy has already snapped away half the world.
Right. There
are Hulks. There are invasions from space. There was a celestial that may or may not have just popped out of the Indian Ocean.
Right.
People are a little on edge right now.
And perhaps also a little jaded too. Like, oh, all right, well, look at that. I wonder what God is bad right now,
Well, exactly. It's kind of like, oh, okay. Well, you know what? If it's just the stars putting on a light show, that's the nicest thing to happen all week. Okay. Yeah. Oh, wow, that was cool. Wow, I'm glad I got to see that, man. I can tell my kids about that. Oh, stars are like, you ever saw that old HBO thing where the lights start running around on the HBO, on the O? And just like that. It was very cool. But then as they're doing that, they pull Khonshu from that reality and they imprison him in a statue.
Stone.
Yes. And when that happens, Steve passes out. And then we get Harrow, again, able to walk into the temple and basically telling Khonshu, yeah, man, you made me like this. And just so you know, you're the one that taught me that pain was the way. And that's what made me realize your methods were not extreme enough.
Right.
And so, yeah, so when I unleash what I do, just know it's all because of you, Khonshu. And that's the episode, Mozz. Any final thoughts?
I wonder if Harrow is simply motivated by revenge against Khonshu, or does he have ideals beyond that emotion?
It's a good question.
Is he using Amit just to get back at Khonshu, or does he really buy into that whole thing? Or is
He's just
Amit
trying to make
just a
Khonshu
tool?
jealous.
Or
My new god is. They really want to kill everybody.
No,
You did, but no.
more like a rebellion against dad, against
Yeah.
your father, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, it's hard to say. I actually think it is just legitimate that, no, he got so messed up by Khonshu and the tortures that Khonshu put him through that now he's just like, no. It's like, I've actually surpassed you. You think you were the fist of vengeance, Khonshu? No.
Yeah, it's almost like
vengeance is.
You have to almost you got to keep the guard dog hungry, kind of thing. So he created this extreme narrative that would allow his hand, his fist to be able to operate in those sorts of ways. But then that's compartmentalized to just being like a utensil. If you let that ideal take hold and become in control, then all sorts of craziness is possible.
Yeah. And you should feed your guard dog. We're not
right. No, I was trying to find a better metaphor.
And what I'll tell you is, how that metaphor usually turns out is the person gets eaten by their guard dog.
That's what I'm saying, right? So, yeah.
It's a bad idea to operate from that. Oh well, I'll just keep him hungry, and I'm gonna make him strong by pushing him down. It's like, yeah, but if you get to a certain point, the dog says, wait, why am I listening to you? Why are you in church when I got these teeth? And that is effectively what I think has happened to poor old Khonshu here. Harrow has realized that he has the teeth in this situation. And he is going to make the situation what he wants it to be.
It almost seems like, Khonshu seems like the old man that doesn't know how to use the internet, and he's getting bested by a rival company that knows how to advertise on Instagram or something.
Yeah, I mean, could be. That's a good analogy. I like.
Right.
All right. So Mozz. So actually, let me start with this. So Mozz. If people like this show, and like any of the shows on the Capes and Lunatics Network, they can write to us at any time at CapesandLunatics@gmail.com. That's Capes and Lunatics, all spelled out, at gmail.com. They can also call us at 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES, where they can leave a voice message, which we will play on the air. If you have thoughts, feelings, emotions, if you're getting emotional like Crash McLarson, call us and let us know what is the bee in your bonnet. And likewise, you can find this in our show notes as well. Go down to Linktree, linktr.ee/CapesandLunatics. There you can find lots of merch, like our amazing aluminum mugs. You can't hear it there, but because I put the lid on, but you have that off and you get that ping sound. It's beautiful. It's a real aluminum mug. Keeps your drinks cold all night, no matter what you're drinking. And you can also find links to all of our shows, our T-shirts, everything at Linktree, linktr.ee/CapesandLunatics. Also, when you're there, you can subscribe to our Patreon, which helps out every show because we are all on our own now, no longer on the Southgate Media Group teat, as it were. And if you give $5 a month, you get full video, including topless movie reviews. All right. Mozz, if people would like to talk to you directly, they don't want to go through the corporation, they just want to get to know you as a person, how can they find you?
Oh, they can press the pound key to speak to the operator, or they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com. That's MOZZMANZOOR. Or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor.
Very good. And likewise, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way, the way our mothers and fathers did, at superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter as I live tweet things when I feel like it, at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Ding.
Thank you, Mozz. See, that's what that aluminium sounds like. All right, yeah, delightful guests of our show. You have sailed these 7 Sargassous seas with us once again in the streaming world. Come again next week, board our ship, and sail with us full stream ahead. Arr.
Yeah.